Shalom from Israel to all of the Daystar viewers around the world. I'm Moshe Bar Tzvi, the producer and founder of Israel Now News. We at Israel Now News are dedicated to bringing you the full story and the truth about Israel from Israel. It's written in the Holy Bible when David said in Psalm 25:5, "Lead me in your truth and teach me, for you are the God of my salvation. For you I wait all the day long." And God says in Zechariah 8:16, "These are the things that you shall do. Speak out the truth to one another. Judge with truth and judgment to peace in your gates. And always search for the truth, and the truth shall set you free." John 8:31. I hope you enjoyed the program. God bless you from Jerusalem. Shalom, shalom.
Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El-Rom.
And I'm Erin Viner.
In our top story, North Korea has threatened to nuke America. The rogue communist nation threatened to hit the United States with a preemptive nuclear strike in response to the announcement of the UN Security Council's vote on sanctions against North Korea. Tensions have risen since Pyongyang defied 3 Security Council resolutions by holding its 3rd nuclear test in December of last year.
21 kidnapped United Nations peacekeepers abducted by Syrian rebels have been released to Jordan. The monitors were taken from their post in the Golan Heights and held captive for 3 days. Heavy fighting between forces loyal to Syrian President Bashar al-Assad and the Syrian opposition caused several delays in the transfer of the hostages, but fortunately all captives were able to cross into Jordan in good health and reportedly unharmed.
9 Israeli police officers were wounded when masked Palestinians attacked them on the Temple Mount last week. Police responded when Muslims began rioting and throwing rocks at officers after Friday prayers. This is the 2nd week that Arabs have instigated violence against Israeli police in the Old City. According to the Jerusalem police chief, the rioters also threw Molotov cocktails at the officers from inside the Al-Aqsa Mosque.
Palestinians collectively mourned the death of Venezuelan dictator Hugo Chavez last week. Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas expressed grief over the death, saying that with the passing of their friend, the Palestinian people and their national movement lost a mainstay of support. Hamas also called the Venezuelan leader a friend to Gaza and sent condolences to the Chavez family. Members of the Fatah PLO terrorist organization, Islamic Jihad, and the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine also mourned the loss of the notorious dictator. And meanwhile, many Arab and Muslim nations also voiced grief over the passing, most notably the Islamic Republic of Iran, whose president Mahmoud Ahmadinejad attended the Chavez funeral. During his eulogy, Ahmadinejad characterized Chavez as a martyr for his people and caused a controversy at home when he embraced the mother of the Venezuelan leader. The ruling Ayatollahs in Tehran expressed outrage at the public violation of Islamic law, while imams and clerics throughout the Islamic Republic went on the record accusing Ahmadinejad of losing control and insulting Islam.
Germany and Turkey have arrested several men in connection with transferring nuclear material to Iran. The 2 countries held raids simultaneously targeting smugglers who were moving nuclear material purchased in India and Germany to the Arak nuclear facility in Iran. It remains unclear how many suspects are in custody, but authorities have said that they seized documents related to the smuggling operation.
2 Israeli Air Force pilots were killed when their helicopter crashed in southern Israel last week. According to the Israel Air Force, 49-year-old Lieutenant Colonel Noam Ron and 31-year-old Major Erez Flexer were flying a Cobra helicopter during a routine training flight when they lost contact with base control. After launching a ground and air search, the IDF located the crash site and wreckage of the aircraft. Israeli Air Force Chief Amir Eshel has in the meantime grounded all Cobra helicopters and ordered an investigation into the cause of the accident.
The State of Israel has expressed outrage over a French town's decision to honor the Palestinian terrorist who assassinated Israel's tourism minister, Rehavam Ze'evi, in 2001. Majdi al-Rimawi and 3 other Palestinian terrorists stalked the Israeli Minister of Tourism and murdered him in cold blood in a Jerusalem hotel. The convicted terrorist is serving life in prison. Last month, the Paris suburb of Bezons unanimously voted to honor the terrorist by granting him honorary residency. Calling him a hero and a political prisoner, the city designed a special plaque in his name and presented it to his lawyer. Israeli Foreign Ministry spokesman Yigal Palmor said that it is outrageous to honor a convicted murderer. No political view can justify it.
An Egyptian court has sentenced 21 men to death by execution for their roles in the 2012 Port Said soccer riots, which killed more than 74 people. A total of 24 defendants received prison terms, ranging from life in prison to 5-year sentences. After the verdict was rendered, angry mobs stormed Egypt's Soccer Federation headquarters in Cairo, setting them on fire. More than 40 people have been killed in violence following the initial incident, and protesters also made a failed attempt to disrupt the flow of shipping through the Suez Canal. The turmoil has spread now to northern Egypt near the Israeli border, and while at the same time Egypt's Interior Ministry has declared a state of emergency in the Sinai Peninsula, saying that they have credible intelligence that jihadists are planning to attack Egyptian police officers or tourists vacationing at resorts in the area.
Ron Prosser, the Israeli ambassador to the United Nations, has called the Palestinians' right of return to the land of Israel the biggest obstacle of the peace process. Speaking to a group at the Harvard Club in Manhattan last week, Prosser said that the UN's classification of Palestinian refugees is the main stumbling block between Israel and the PLO. Palestinians are the only people in the world whose refugee status is automatically transferred to their descendants. In 1950, there were 700,000 Palestinian refugees, but the UN's special distinction for them has created more than 5 million refugees who now claim rights to the land of Israel. Prosser explained that UNRWA's special status at the UN, which allows it to perpetuate the refugee problem, is an impediment to peace. He added that while the UNHRC has a mandate to resettle and rehabilitate refugees, UNRWA works to perpetuate the refugee problem rather than solve it.
The United Nations has announced that the number of Syrian refugees has now exceeded 1 million. The UN High Commissioner Antonio Guterres said that in addition to those who have already fled, millions of others have been displaced internally and thousands continue to pour across the Republic's borders daily, and that the situation in Syria is now spiraling toward a full-scale disaster. Since the start of 2013, more than 400,000 refugees have entered Turkey, Jordan, Egypt, Iraq, and Lebanon, more than half of whom are children under the age of 11. More than 70,000 people have been killed in the Syrian civil war, which has now raged for more than 2 years.
Israel and the United States are gearing up for U.S. President Barack Obama's upcoming visit to the Holy Land. The president is due to land in Israel on March 20th with 2 cargo planes, which will carry 2 presidential limousines, 2 Marine One helicopters, bulletproof podiums, and other military equipment. 50 Secret Service agents have been in Israel for weeks preparing for the official visit, and dozens more will come in the days before his arrival. The Israeli Prime Minister's office has launched an iPhone application which will allow interested citizens to follow the president's trip throughout Israel. It will feature real-time updates, videos, photographs, and behind-the-scenes glimpses of the visit. The app will be available in Hebrew, English, and Arabic.
Palestinian activists have announced their intention to boycott the upcoming visit of U.S. President Barack Obama to Israel. The Palestinians for Dignity group is calling for huge demonstrations against Obama's presence, as well as U.S. policies that they say are supportive of Israel's occupation. Members declared Obama as persona non grata because of America's military, financial, and diplomatic aid to Israel, and they've announced plans to hold demonstrations against reviving the Israeli-Palestinian peace process. This comes just 1 week after Islamic Jihad and Hamas called on Palestinians to unite in preventing President Obama from visiting the Temple Mount and Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem. And that concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host Josh Reinstein, and we're here on our rooftop studio in Jerusalem in yet another beautiful day. My guest today is Roger Van Oort, Executive Director of Christians for Israel. Roger, thank you for being on the show.
Yes, pleasure.
Roger, tell our viewers a little about what is Christians for Israel.
What's it all about? Christians for Israel started in 1979. It was started by my dad, who did business with Israel for a long time, since 1967. He represented several Israeli companies like Magnesium, Israel Chemicals, Naked Phosphates. He wanted to dedicate his life after he had sold his business when he was 52. He wanted to dedicate his life for Israel. And due to the Arab boycott, he wanted to speak to churches that had to back Israel in every situation.
Well, your father, Karl Van Oort, is a legend in Israel. He was actually just honored by the Knesset. What made him leave business and go into ministry full-time?
That time, he had been many times in Israel, and he saw the Arab boycott, and he thought that also many Christians, they didn't know how and if they wanted to support Israel. And he thought we have to missionize the church because God is faithful towards the Jewish people. He brought them back from the diaspora, and he's bringing them back from the diaspora. And we, as Christians, have to be aware of this, and we have to support this, because if God is in this business, He's bringing back His people. We cannot be aside as Christians. So his message was to missionize the church, that they have to be behind Israel. It never the goal to set up a big organization or a great organization, because yes, we are simple Christians, and we were aware that we have to go to our Christian fellow Christians to bring this message.
Missionize the Christians and missionize the church is an interesting expression, and yet you've been able to do that very effectively. Today, in Europe, many Christians are standing with Israel and understand God's covenant with Abraham and with the nation of Israel. What are some of the activities that Christians are doing on behalf of Israel in Europe today?
When we started, we never thought about to do projects, because we had always the idea is that Israel doesn't need our money, but they need work, they need our comfort. But when you touch the heart of Christians, they also want not only to pray, but also they wanted to do something. So we are involved in Aliyah work already since 1996, and we are doing it together with the Jewish Agency and with Keren Hayezot, which is the fundraising arm of the Jewish Agency. We work in Ukraine. We visit Jewish families. We erect small monuments for Holocaust survivors there, and we are effectively bringing them to the airport and taking care of the visas and of all the documents they need. We don't do it on ourselves. We only work through Jewish organizations here in Israel.
You know, Keren Hayezot is the foundation fund. It's the fundraising arm of the State of Israel. How were you received as a Christian partnering with that organization?
So it took years before we were fully trusted by the Jewish people in Holland, but also in Israel, that we had no hidden agenda, that we only want to support Israel in every way. This is our message, and this is what we do. Besides the Keren Hayezot, we are also very closely working with the Jerusalem Foundation. We did many projects here for the integration of the Russian Jews, the Ethiopian Jews. We built here what was called Holland Village. It was on Givat Hamatos. Later on, we did an absorption center here, which we financed together with the Jerusalem Foundation. We are doing many things for the poor neighborhoods here in Kiryat HaYovel. And our last project was it had to do with stones, because it was the mill of Montefiore, which we, together with the Jerusalem Foundation, rebuilt it. And it's now, the sweeps are turning, and the end of April, it will also be able to grind wheat and to make flour out of it. A Dutch millwright is at the moment working in it, and I think you can, every day you can see now the sweeps of the mill of Montefiore turning. For many Israelis, they think that it never worked, but it worked for 20 years. And the interesting thing is that Sir Montefiore built it especially for the poor Jews which fled the pogroms, what we call now White Russia, and they came to Jerusalem. They couldn't live inside the walls of Jerusalem because it was overcrowded. And Montefiore, he built a mill and a small wall around this area in Yemin Moshe, and to protect those people. And it's such a beautiful sign, because it's the sign of the first Aliyah since around 1850. An interesting thing to tell is that that time there were many Christians in England who prayed for the restoration of Israel, of the Jewish people in their land. And what we think is that this prayer was heard by the Almighty.
Well, one of the most exciting things to happen in Aliyah in Israel is the coming back of Bnei Menashe. Yeah. Literally, the children of Manasseh are coming back from India to Israel, and this is something in the Christian world that's been very exciting. It's really literally the fulfillment of prophecy. I understand that you're involved in that project. How does it feel as a Christian to be really involved in the fulfillment of prophecy?
Oh, it puts so much energy. I tell you a small story. I was on the 31st, it was a Sunday. I was in my church, and the sermon was about the blessings of Joseph, the blessings of Jacob to his sons. And then we had a sermon about the Bnei Menashe, because they said, yes, they got the biggest part in the land. And then our pastor said, yes, but you know, they were not faithful, and we never heard something about them. So after the service, I went to him and said, you know, this day, there are 234 Jewish people from Bnei Menashe brought home. God is always faithful. There is a remnant coming back. And I think that many Christians do not realize, even I think most of Israel do not realize what God is doing in our days.
You know, there are literally tens of millions of people watching this show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
What I have to say, and I think all your viewers and many Christians, they know that God is fulfilling His word, what's written in the Tanakh. This is a great sign also for us to be faithful until the end, until Messiah comes. And that's what I want to exhort you. Be faithful, keep the commandments until everything, and the Messiah will come, and peace and wisdom will flow from Zion here all over the world.
Thank you, Roger, for being on the show. And thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.
Up next, shining light from Israel.
winery is called Gat Shomron. We're in Karnei Shomron.
This is the Rubens. It's a blend Bordelais, French. Rubens. His name of my son.
I think this is only one cellar, only one vineyard that is doing without any editing. We don't enter to make any special process. We just let it to be like in the Torah.
Here we are presenting to our Petit Verdot, only from Farbarbourg. The Petit Verdot is a variety from Bordeaux.
Here, that's our flag wine, the Grand Vital. It's a blend of Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot and Cabernet Franc, 20 months in the barrels.
We harvest the grapes when they look like raisins, and that gives it its high sugar content. But when you drink the wine, it is not very, very sweet.
This one is a Cabernet Franc, Noad Meyuchad, in 20 months in barrique oil. Is 2010. And after we have the Arons. Arons is the same name of my son. He's a special reserve.
Take our wine, people that never drank wine, say, what? First time in their lives they drink wine. No any headache, no any allergy. You feel very good, no headache, no hangover, nothing. I think that is the right way to make wine, to my point of view.
Please stay tuned for the ICEJ report from the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem.
Welcome to another episode of the ICEJ report. And this ICEJ report is coming to you directly from Port Harcourt, Nigeria, where we just attended one of the most powerful conferences every year in Nigeria's calendar, the Global Prayer Quake, which is a prayer quake, a prayer conference, interceding for Africa, but also for the nations.
The annual Global Prayer Quake Conference is organised by Apostle Mosi Mudugba, ICEJ's National Director for Nigeria. The conference attracts thousands of men and women from many different nations, all of whom come to earnestly pray and intercede for their countries. Intense prayer and fasting is something that the Nigerian church is fully committed to.
Mosi, there is a powerful revival taking place today here in Nigeria. Christendom is in an incredible increase and forward move. What is the secret? And tell us a little bit about this revival here in Nigeria.
We are privileged to see what we are seeing, but we see it as a result of the tears and prayers of some of our fathers. They were giving to intense fasting and prayer and calling upon God. And suddenly we have seen an outbreak of revival and an interest. There is a change in the spiritual climate. You find people becoming interested in the things of the Lord. The intensity of prayers that go on in this country is very intense, and we believe it's part of what has cleared the spiritual climate, for the growth we are seeing today.
The influence of the church in Nigeria is having an impact on provincial and national political leaders, many of whom express a desire to become pastors when they complete their political careers. Along with this, incredible numbers of Nigerians are coming to faith in Jesus.
We have meetings where 2 million people come for all-night prayer meetings. Wow. And then when the meeting is over, it takes about 6 hours for all the cars to be able to get away from the parking lot.
times of joyous praise and sincere worship are well known in Africa, as Christians there withhold nothing, giving glory to God with all of their beings, expressing themselves through traditional rhythms and dance. The Nigerian church also has a deep passion for Israel.
An average of over 25,000 people every year from Nigerian church go to Israel. That shows a great love. They're not going there to buy or sell. They're just going there to identify with the land and to see what God said in the Bible physically.
The ICEJ's international and executive directors shared from the Word of God and encouraged pastors and leaders to continue praying, blessing, and supporting the nation of Israel.
We thank God for ICEJ. It's a new discovery for us in the Africa. Now, many people want to identify with what God is doing in Israel. So recently, leaders in Israel, Christians in Nigeria and in Africa, they've come to know ICEJ, they've come to believe in ICEJ, and the commitment is growing.
Christian leaders in Nigeria have set ambitious goals for the future. They desire to plant churches within 5 minutes' walk of every person in the country. God's Spirit is moving powerfully in the continent of Africa, and the International Christian Embassy Jerusalem is excited to be a part of it.
If there is hope for Africa, if God can change the spiritual landscape of Africa, He also can change your country. And also I want to encourage you to follow the African church in their dedication and in their passion to support Israel in those days. Israel needs your prayers more than ever before. And we want to encourage you to stand with us, to stand with the International Christian Embassy, to make a measurable impact in the days which we are living, and to make sure that Israel understands that it doesn't stand alone, but that Christians from all over the world are standing with her like the African church. May the Lord bless you here from Port Harcourt, Nigeria.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El-Rom.
And I'm Erin Viner, reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Please join us again next week for all your Israel updates.